It all started as a usual Friday morning for farmer Victor, who was about to check the health of his crops. This normal morning changed when Victor drove by his field and saw that it was covered with weird-looking black eggs. He was clueless about where the eggs came from. What was even more shocking was the contents of those eggs. Victor felt himself getting lightheaded and close to fainting. But before we start, make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. A farmer's life is full of routines. They wake up before the sun rises and start their work. Their days are filled with hard labor. But it is also very rewarding. Being a farmer had always been Victor's dream, and now that he had made it a reality, nothing could go wrong, or so he thought. Victor has two daughters, Susie and Haley, with his wife, Nora. They live on a farm where they herd sheep and cows to sell their milk and wool. Victor woke up as normal and put on his overalls. He always lets his wife sleep in a little longer than he does. He made breakfast for the family so they could eat as soon as they woke up. When everyone finished their breakfast, it was finally time for Victor to step outside and feed his animals. He had his buckets of food ready and walked to the chicken coop. His chickens acted differently than usual. They ran around the coop and it seemed like they were scared of something. But what? Victor then noticed something else. One chicken was missing from the coop. He walked around it but stopped when he saw a little pile of feathers on the ground. Oh no. Victor knew exactly what this meant. He ran inside to get a towel and a box and put the deceased chicken in there. How could it have died so suddenly, and why was it out of its coop? He continued his round and walked to the pigs. They were louder than usual. What is going on here? Then suddenly he heard that strange sound again. He listened carefully but couldn't place where it came from. It couldn't be far because he could hear it clearly. After he was done feeding all his animals, he went into the barn to get his tractor ready. He had to harvest the corn today, so he hooked the machine to his tractor and opened the barn doors. Haley suddenly yelled that she had found something. Victor asked her what it was, but she wasn't sure how to answer. Victor walked to his daughter when she failed to answer him. He stood next to her, and together they looked in silence at what lay in front of them. "What is this, Dad?" Haley asked. Victor wished he could answer her, but he was just as baffled as her. Nora also came running toward the barn, and her mouth fell open when she arrived. "Eggs," Nora said, stunned. "They're black. How is this possible?" But then Victor hears a familiar sound. Victor hears the same sound he has been hearing all morning. It came from the barn all this time. He crouched down and held his head close to one of the eggs. Then he jumped up, startled. There is something inside. Victor wanted to get rid of the eggs, but his daughters would have never forgiven him if he had done that. So instead, he suggested something else. "Well, girls, the crops aren't savable anymore, but maybe we can still save the eggs," Victor said. The girls' faces lit up, and they jumped in the air of joy. There were about 20 eggs scattered around the field. Nora wasn't as enthusiastic as the girls. She looked worryingly at all the eggs and wondered from what animal they came and how they got here. What if they were snake eggs? Victor noticed his wife's worries and wrapped an arm around her. "It's all right, dear. They look like chicken eggs to me. You don't have to worry." It had been 2 days since they found the eggs. The eggs started to crack, and it could be any minute until they began hatching. On the 4th day, it was finally time. Victor went to check on the eggs when he noticed one was already empty. He frantically looked around him, but the baby was nowhere to be found. He called his girls over, and they waited for the other eggs to hatch together. The wait felt longer than expected, and the girls almost lost their patience when finally 2 more eggs started to move. They cracked and shifted. Slowly but surely, a little animal came out. They have never seen anything like this before. Victor couldn't believe his eyes. Out of all the animals, he never imagined these to come out of the eggs. He yelled for his wife to come quickly but couldn't hold his emotions any longer. He couldn't help himself and started to cry. He burst out crying when his wife arrived. She asked what was wrong and he pointed at the animals. Nora immediately knew what was going on and comforted her husband. The animals were little baby peacocks. Victor always cared for peacocks when he was little. He even had his own peacock, who was his best friend. After it died, he never cared for a peacock again until now. It seemed like a miracle, but this is not everything. Victor couldn't stand giving the animals away and wanted to keep them all, but Nora disagreed. There wasn't enough room on their farm for 20 peacocks, so they decided to do something else instead. That was the only option, and Victor knew this. Nora and Victor kept 2 peacocks on their own farm and brought the other 18 animals to a peacock sanctuary. There they had all the freedom they deserved and would get the best care, and the girls also loved taking care of the peacock.